this slide then really encapsulates what I'm trying to get across with the whole. I'd love to just throw up a 5 do's and don'ts and everything, and you'll be fine. But the trouble with that idea of being prescriptive is that every day, certainly every week, there's a new scam, there's a new trick, there's a new variant. So it's very difficult to be completely prescriptive. The Americans have this slightly irritating kind of catchphrase of stop, think, connect, and have a little jingle that goes with it. But it does maybe just get across the message. And as I say, the strapline across the top, when you cross the street, you look both ways to make sure it's safe. You can say, well, what's that got to do with cybersecurity? Well, it's the same sort of idea. So when you're about to do something on the web, just stop for a second. It can be hard. Just hover your finger above the keyboard or the mouse just for that couple of seconds to think. In the same way, when you're about to cross the street, you don't just start walking across and hope there isn't a car coming. Well, I hope you do. You stop, you look, you make sure. Okay, I realize you're busy, realize you've got lots of emails to get through, and it can be hard, but just take those couple of seconds, stop and think, is this a valid email? I mean, it may even be coming from somebody or appear to be coming from someone that you know. It may even be in context. You're expecting an email about, say, a financial transaction, and here she comes, but you stop. Obviously, the risk, you have to think about what the risk is associated with that. If this is just a routine email, you might not think too much of it and say, okay, that's fine. If it's an email asking you to transfer an 8-figure sum into a bank account somewhere, you really probably should stop there now and think about that for a little minute. If in doubt, ask, ring the person. If somebody in the sales office down in Cork sends you an email, or so you think, looking for something, ring them and say, listen, I just got your email, thanks a million, just wanted to ask one question. In most cases, what they're after here is trying to get you to click on a link or open an attachment. That's not always the case, but those are usually the key points. At this stage, only proceed if you have made reasonable attempts to make sure that it's safe. And if in doubt, just don't do it again. If possible, pick up the phone, or quite simply don't do it. You don't have to click on every link. Often you hear of, it's a picture, something comes in which purports to be a picture of, kittens or something like that. Just don't click on it. Well, the world won't stop turning if you don't look at every attachment if you're not sure. At this stage, I'm going to break into a few stories and anecdotes. I think most of which are true. Some of them are anyways. Just to give you an idea, it's very difficult to be prescriptive. One that I often talk about is one of the universities, I think it might have been Trinity, I'm not certain, had a study where they sprinkled a load of USB keys around Dublin, and on them they had a little kind of a benign virus. It was simply a dial home program to see how many people would pick them up and plug them into their machines. And you've guessed it, I think something like 60% of them came back and dialed home. Now, obviously it was completely benign, but that could have been anything. It could have been a virus that could have compromised. And a lot of those would appear to have been from company machines, telling by there were static IPs, etc. So people out maybe for the lunch picks the thing up off the ground and plugs it in. Now that for me is the stop moment and the think moment. Is that a great idea? Well, obviously now you think about it, probably not. I heard of another one. One of my colleagues recently talked about. He'd heard of somebody buying a Chris Kindle present for somebody, a little coffee cup warmer. You've probably seen them, like a little hot plate. Plug it into a USB drive. It gets vaguely warm and keeps your coffee warm, supposedly. Got it on eBay for a $5 or something like that. Gives it to somebody. The guy plugs it in. There's a virus on it now. Thankfully, I believe it was picked up by his antivirus. But it just, where did that virus come from? You buy something on eBay, for a $5, you have no idea where it's come from. Don't plug it into your corporate machine. In fact, probably don't plug it into any machine. And again, it's just trying to get you to think about that. The other thing I'd say is don't go looking for trouble. Trouble will find you handy enough on the internet. But if you really go looking for it, we find that in most cases where we've been coming in to do, say, particularly ransomware attacks, that we find that the vector or the means of infection has been a corporate laptop. So somebody's brought their work laptop home. They've engaged in what I would call inappropriate activity. Now, I'm not really talking about anything bad or nasty here. Typically things like watching movies online and stuff like that, maybe getting illegal software, nothing bad or nasty here. But of course, the end result is they get the virus, they bring the machine back into the company, the virus then starts to go and encrypt their data. And to me, there's almost an element of just criminal stupidity here. You should not do activity and stuff like that on a company device. Probably shouldn't be doing it on any device, but or certainly any device where you, again, as I said earlier, you might be using to active. It could be a home machine, but if you ever use it to, say, access webmail or something like that, it can be compromised.